Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, and this is Ben and Barry on football. My partner is...
Hello, hello, hello. This is Ben Dickerson. I'm your co-host, lover of everything football, especially the NFL, and hope everybody's being safe out there.
In today's show, we're going to cover the NFL top 20 drafts picks by combine grade. We're going to talk a little bit about what the NFL was going to look like post-COVID-19. Take a quick look at the Sofi Stadium, their Oculus video platform that is just ridiculous. We lost a great one this week in Don Shula. We want to revisit that a minute. Talk a little bit about the LSU versus the pros, and then maybe wrap it up with Super Bowl odds, Benny. They got the Super Bowl odds out there already. So everyone take a seat, join us. If you haven't liked us before, make sure you subscribe and click the bell to get notifications. All right, Benny, let's kick this thing off with the draft picks. Before I pull them all up, we'll just do a quick run, or rather what I'll do is I will pull them all up so that we can kind of see them first. I'll pull them up and we'll go over that list, and then we'll take a closer look at them one by one. All right. Starting with number 20 by grade, Tristan Wirfs, Andrew Thomas, Zack Bond, Cleavon Chase. Tell me if I say any of this wrong. Yetur Gross Matos, Javon Kinlaw.
That was good. You did well.
Did I do good on that one? All right. Yeah. There you go. Mekhi Becton, Patrick Queen, C.J. Henderson, Henry Ruggs III, Jerry Jeudy, Tua Tagovailoa. Hey, how'd I do?
That was good. That was real good.
You should have heard me last week.
Yeah, I did. You butchered.
DeAndre Swift, CeeDee Lamb, Jedrick Willis, Isaiah Simmons, Joe Burrow, Derrick Brown, Jeff Okuda, and the number one ranked by grade pick, Chase Young. Man, that's only 20. That's only 20, but those are the top 20 by grade. So, Ben, let's start out with Tristan Wirfs, okay? Draft prospect out of Iowa, hometown Mount Vernon, junior. We saw this as a theme through a lot of these guys. A lot of juniors came out.
That is correct. A lot of juniors came out. I think that most of these star athletes, they finish high school as 5-star and 4-star athletes and go to these huge college programs. And, you know, it's not like the NBA where you can just, you know, forego college or have a one and done. Seldom do you see that when it comes to football. But usually by their junior year, these guys start getting projected where they're going to end up in the NFL draft. And at that point, usually around their junior year, they're ready to go, especially if they're coming out of big-time schools that have done well, you know, in their freshman and sophomore and junior years.
Okay. And I can imagine, I guess, if these guys were able to come out of college where the pandemic has kind of shut everything down, and there's so much uncertainty by those athletes that remain in college now, what's going to happen, you know, for them next year and how that's all going to work out. This, at least in this class, they're ready to go over to the other side and get those contracts signed, get some level of financial, what can I say? They're going to be rich. They're going to be rich.
And like we say every year, there are some guys out there, and it's a good number of them, that overnight are going from, you know, lower class, lower middle class to millionaires overnight.
Overnight, man, I'm telling you. So speaking of overnight, this gentleman here, Christian Wirtz, let's get him back up on the screen here. What do you have on him?
Christian Wirtz,
Tristan.
believe. I'm sorry, I'm calling him Christian too. I got McCaffrey on my mind for fantasy.
Yeah, you and the rest of the NFL.
Right. Tristan Wirfs was, I believe, the highest rated, not just going by combine numbers, but the highest rated offensive lineman, supposedly, by the draft experts, the Kuipers, and those guys. I agreed with them. I thought size-wise, experience-wise, and, the tape that I saw of him, that he was probably going to be the top one or two offensive linemen that come out. He did make it to the first round, but he was picked number 13. And I actually thought that he would go earlier than that. In fact, I thought that he could possibly go to my team, the Giants, that had the number 4 pick overall, because if they didn't get a linebacker, which is what I wanted them to get, the next best option was an offensive lineman, specifically an offensive tackle. But he survived till pick 13. Very surprising for me.
He went to the Bucks, and he went there as a result of a trade with my Niners, who, they moved once.
They basically swapped places.
Right.
And I'm sure the Buccaneers were probably looking at their board going, wow, Wirfs is still there. Let's make sure we get him and flip with the Niners. They didn't even want to leave it for chance that you guys were probably or may have been looking at him.
I think it was a gentleman agreement going on there, but long story short, with Joe Staley leaving, I complained a lot about our line. I remember I was saying, it wasn't one of the best lines. I think they overachieved, but they also, because we ran the ball a lot, linemen like run blocking,
Absolutely.
That's a beautiful thing. And we weren't as good. I know I complained a little bit about their ability to handle the blitz as an offense, much less, which includes the quarterback. But long story short, man, a Tristan Wirfs, and then they went and got Trent from the Washington Redskins.
Yes.
Joe Staley retired.
Trent Williams.
Right. I mean,
he was very dissatisfied with management there. And the funny thing is, I just read something about this. I'm thinking, hey, most of his issues were with management, the GM, the coach. Those guys are all gone now. And Ron Rivera's brought in a new staff there with Washington. And he still wanted to leave.
Yeah, and, I thought that same thing. I was like, new start, new management, same owner, though.
Yeah, well, that's true. But actually, according to Trent Williams, it was the fact that, and I don't know if this is substantiated or not, but it was the fact that Ron Rivera asked a little bit more of him as far as being a leader in the locker room and such, or to prove that, now under this new staff and all, that he would continue to be a leader and a standout player and this, that, and the other. And he took a little offense to them saying that he needed to prove something to them in that regard. Turns out he was already a locker room leader, and he was already well respected by his teammates. So for them to ask him to prove that kind of rubbed him the wrong way. So he was ready to go. And, you don't want to keep a guy that doesn't want to be there. And then he lucked up and goes to the 49ers. Wow.
Well, I'm not mad because, again, losing Joe Staley,
Perfect
the thing is, I don't know how much we improved our line overall because Joe Staley Trent Williams, about the same as far as I'm concerned. Really, both great. You know what I mean? Your best lineman, no doubt about it, on that line. So yeah, we didn't lose what we could have lost, with getting him. The question is, across the line, what did we do? But that's not what we're talking about now. Let's get back to Tristan Wirfs. Any last words on Mr. Wirfs?
No, I think he'll love it where he is, and I think he'll be a great pro, as I believed he would be, regardless of where he got chosen.
Next man, right above Mr. Wirfs, Andrew Thomas from Georgia, 6'5", 315.
Wonderful. Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas is also an offensive lineman. His combine numbers was a little bit better than Wirfs.
No. His grade was a little better, so I guess they would have to be. Yeah.
His grade was better, but his so-called ranking or his projected ranking was much lower than Wirfs.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. We gotta switch up here. In most people's minds, I would think in the majority of the team's minds, Wirfs would have been where Thomas got selected by my Giants at the number 4 pick overall for a team that needed an offensive lineman. And Thomas would have made it down to the lower end or the middle of the lower end of the first round. And in fact, they were opposites. I find that very interesting. I believe a move like that tells me that the Giants staff has really, really looked hard at the top-ranked players that can play offensive tackle and came up with this idea that Thomas would be the best fit for their team. Size-wise, attitude-wise, health-wise, everything you can look at. And they decided that was their guy, and they went and got him. I'm not mad at him.
Okay. All right. So that takes care of him. Anything more on that young man you want to add?
No, he's fine. He's fine right where he is. And Saquon will be buying him Rolexes for the holes that he opens up for him.
Man, Saquon, Jimmy Christmas, the gift. Let's not forget, we named him. All right. Next up, Zack Bond. Wisconsin, 6'2", 238. He got picked up in the round 3. Now, and again, one of the reasons I wanted to do the top 20 was just to kind of see the relationship between combine grades and the NFL value, where you get valued at. So this gentleman was about number 17 overall in combine grades, but yet he went in round 3, pick number 10 by the Saints, which is not a bad place to go. Not a bad place. Ran a 4.65, 24 bench press. What you got on him?
Well, when guys are ranked or projected to be first round or high second round picks at their position, and their position is going to be a position of need for somebody somewhere along the line. And then for him to drop all the way to the 3rd round before he's actually taken, I'm not exactly sure what that says. I don't want to speculate, okay? But we've seen things like this happen before, and then later on you find out something about the guy. But I haven't heard anything about the guy, so I don't know. For him to be projected to go as high as he was supposed to go and to be in the top 20 as far as combine grades is concerned, that's a big drop-off.
That's a big drop. Yeah, no doubt about it. So you figure from there, you go to the 3rd round. Let's move on to the next gentleman. And I remember hearing his name over and over again during that combine situation. Mr. Cleavon Chase, edge rusher, LSU. Of course. I don't know which school had the most, but I think LSU was just about up there with Alabama in terms of the most draftees.
I believe LSU was number 1 and Alabama was number 2. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. All right.
Not surprising, and I'm sure Ohio State was up there somewhere too.
So Jacksonville got themselves a linebacker.
Yes. Well, linebacker, edge rusher. I'm not sure exactly what defense they run. The thing is, they're going to depend on him to get after the quarterback, and it's very important for every defensive line, obviously. And this guy was projected to go pretty high as far as edge rushers are concerned. I don't think he was the number 1 edge rusher projection-wise, but again, he had a top 20 combine workout grade. So we wanted to talk about him, and we valued him and thought that maybe he would be a first rounder, and at least a first rounder. And turns out he was. He went at number 20. There are a lot of good edge rushers this year. And when I say a lot, I don't mean a lot like the wide receiver group. That was crazy. That was crazy. There's teams that right now are trying to sign 11, 12, 13, 14 wide receivers to their teams before they start the cut down process because the position was so rich. That's crazy. But there was a good number of good edge rushers. I think he probably ended up right around where he should have.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next. And you said there were a lot of good edge rushers. Well, here you got one out of your school, Penn State.
Yep.
Where the heck is Spotsylvania?
Is that where he's from? Spotsylvania, PA?
That's what it's Virginia. Spotsylvania.
Oh,
Virginia.
I thought that was that. You know what? I think there's a Spotsylvania, Pennsylvania too.
Could be.
I really believe it is, but that's one of them. It's some little town in VA, man.
Went to the Carolina Panthers. Got drafted by the new coach. Round 2, pick number 6.
Round 2, pick number 6. Now, again, I believe that when I was looking at rankings, this guy had a late first round, early second round projection. So I'm going to say that he probably ended up around the best spot or around the most likely spot, round 2, pick number 6. He's right in there where he should be. Carolina Panthers need a lot of help on their defense. That could be a marriage made in heaven. We don't know. I did see a little extra film on him because they did a little special on him on one of the channels. And what's his size? You got his size there?
He is 6'5", 266.
6'5", 266. Tall. I knew there was something physical I wanted to say about him. So he's really tall. Okay. But I think he'll do well. And I think he's probably landed pretty much where he was projected.
Okay.
Most of these guys, if they get picked in the first round, then their combine numbers kind of correlate. You know what I'm saying? You're the top 20 combine grade. You're supposed to be a first round. It's 32 teams in the league. You know, some teams have multiple picks in the first round. If you're supposed to be a first rounder, then you're probably going to end up there with the top 20 combine grade. Couple of exceptions.
Okay. All right.
Jason Kinlaw.
Mr. Kinlaw.
Round 1, pick 14 to the San Francisco 49ers.
No doubt about it. Okay. Go ahead. What do you got on him?
Looks like he's going to kind of try to carry on the tradition of first round 49er D-line selections. They've made a bunch of them in the past few years, and this guy looks like another one. Some people, some 49er fans will probably say, another D tackle? You know what I mean?
Well, we just got rid of one, so.
Oh, yeah, okay. You don't necessarily have to go 1 for 1 when you have 6 of them that were all number 1 picks. Okay? But they decided to go that route. I can't fault them. John Lynch has done some great things out there. So, you know, if that's the guy they wanted, he definitely had good combine numbers. He was projected as a first rounder, and there you have it. Boom, bang. Yeah, everybody's looking for edge rushers, but if you've got one, Mr. Bosa, okay, then you can work on a D tackle that can break down a pocket, that can give you push up the middle, and that can play the run. That's what this guy's supposed to be.
And that's one of the areas you particularly talked about that we had a problem with that direct, those dive plays and
Yes,
that runs up the middle. So, yeah, absolutely. All righty, what's up next? Who we got here? Mekhi Becton?
yeah.
Bill.
Yeah, that's the real big guy, right?
6'7", 364.
Yeah.
Went to the Jets, round 1, pick 11.
Okay, I like that pick. Some people had him a little bit lower probably than 11, but you can't pass up the kind of size that this guy has. And he ran a pretty good 42. He did like a low 5 in the 40. So, again, his combine grade kind of matches up with where he got picked.
5'1". 5.1 in the 40, 23 bench press reps.
That's blazing fast for a person that size.
364, 364 pounds.
I don't even want to say for a guy that size. For a human being that size to run that fast. There's a lot of quarterbacks that can't run 5 flat. A whole bunch of them.
That's for sure.
No
doubt.
But anyway, yeah, that's a good pickup for the Jets. They obviously loved him to go with him with the number 1, with the 11th pick overall, over and above other positions that they could have gone for. So, hey, again, his combine grade, his projection, and where he actually got picked kind of match up.
All right. Next up, Patrick Queen, LSU, again, 6'2", 229, had a 6.71, and again, on a scale of 8, just to remind everybody, went to the Baltimore Ravens, round 1, pick 28, linebacker.
He's, I believe that Queen was very highly ranked as a linebacker. I would say off the top of my head that he was probably projected within the top 3 of the linebackers coming out this year. The guy I really liked, Isaiah Simmons, I would say was probably 1. And we'll come across the other guy that fills out that top 3. But Queen was up there. So now he went when?
Queen went
right here in front of me. Here we go. Round 1, pick 28. Yeah, that's a little late for him. The Ravens were lucky to get a player of his quality, I think, that far down. That'd be, if he really pans out to actually win a spot in that starting defensive lineup right off the bat, I would say that's a steal real close to the Lamar Jackson thing they pulled off at the end of the first round last year. That again, when you're picking that late in the first round and you get a gem, that's we're gonna have to do our thing on the brain trust.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They did the job there. They did that job. You got to watch them guys, man. We'll talk a little bit later again about the Super Bowl odds as they're stacking up now, where everybody's coming in at. Let's take a look at C.J. Henderson, cornerback out of Florida, 6'1", 204. Came in with a grade of 672. Went in round 1, pick number 9 to the Jaguars.
C.J. Henderson.
Ran a 4.39, Benny.
4.39 is fast. That's real fast. Let me see, where are we at here? Okay, we're not quite into the top 10 as far as our combine grades were concerned, but C.J. Henderson was definitely a top pick or a top projected cornerback or DB altogether. So his grade and where he got picked, I would say match up. In fact, he might have gone higher. I believe when I was watching the draft that I heard his name mentioned quite a bit in the really early picks during round one. And some teams went in a different direction. But yeah, CJ Henderson, 9th pick overall. I'll go with that. He's going to help Jacksonville. They're still reeling from having lost what's his name, Big Mouth over there in the corner.
Oh, Jacksonville. Yeah, he went to the Rams, right?
Rams, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Name's escaping me. But long story short, Jacksonville Jaguars, that's 2 defensive picks that they have here. Cleavon Chase went to Jacksonville, edge rusher, and now CJ Henderson.
Yeah.
Cornerback. So they're stacking that defense a little bit.
They need to. That tells you.
No doubt about it.
I mean, you know what? The funny thing, now I don't want to get too far into that, but if you really start looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars, or if you happen to be a Jaguar fan out there somewhere, they really like Minshew. They traded Nick Foles. You know what I mean? They're kind of, I don't want to say content on offense, but they know where they need to work. They're not standing pat trying to tank out for another season or something. They're really going to try to improve. So I give them credit for that.
Okay. You know where I wanted to go with the loss of our speedster, but this gentleman went to the place where they value speed for sure. Henry Ruggs III, baby. 5'11", 188. Went to the Raiders. Round 1, pick 12. Ran a 4.27 in the 40 with a 42-inch vertical and a 131-inch broad jump. Now, I don't know if he can catch. No, I know he can catch. I'm just joking. But this gentleman here is going to create some problems in the AFC and whoever else has to deal with him.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, we're doing the top 20 draft grades. And we started at 20 and we're working our way up to the higher numbers. And Henry Ruggs is the first receiver we've come across.
That is true.
Yet a lot of teams really had him valued supposedly higher than that. A lot of projections had him far higher than that. We're going to see some other wide receivers with better draft grades, but had lower projections than Ruggs, mostly because of his speed. And he's gone to the team that's famous for taking fast wide receivers since the Al Davis days. Okay. If he's the fastest guy out there, the Raiders want him. So they got their guy, you know. If he can hang on to the ball, which I don't think he has a big problem. I remember that being stated as a weakness for a lot of wide receivers, but it wasn't heavily stated for him. He dropped his share, but chances are that he can really help a team with a need for speed. And, you know, that's the Raiders' forte. So there you go.
All right. You mentioned that we had not seen any receivers, but yet we knew that this draft had a glut of them, or a lot of them at the very least. So let's take a look at the next one up. Mr. Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver out of Alabama, 6'1", 193. Came up with a 6.77, a little bit better than Mr. Ruggs. Went to the Broncos. People are liking the Broncos draft results this year, from what I understand. This gentleman ran a 4.45, 35-inch vertical, 120-inch broad jump. So, I mean, he's no slouch. Mr. Jerry Jeudy is going to help out that young quarterback in Denver.
Yes. And this is a guy that I thought was the number 1 receiver coming out in my
Really?
Yes, I believe that he was 1A to CeeDee Lamb's 1B, simply on his experience and his knowledge of route running. When you watch the tape, the guy is a master. He looks like a veteran NFL receiver the way he runs his routes. So I really liked him. I thought he should have gone a little higher. But when you get up high in the draft, you don't find the draft for need thing, so to speak, as much as you do in the later rounds. I think guys actually have their eye on people. You know, they set up their draft boards like, okay, this is our number one pick. I got to have this guy. And if I even have an inkling that somebody that's picking before me has their eye on this same guy, then I'm looking to make a trade. So these are the kind of guys that are coming off in the early parts of the first round. So, you know, if you had your eye on Jeudy and you got him, good for you.
All right. That does it for Mr. Jeudy. So we had a lot of conversation about Mr. Tua. He was a situation where, you know, he's got the famous hip injury, but he went to the Dolphins, round 1, pick 5. And, you know, he was pretty happy. His family had the little lay all around him and everything. And, they, you know, so he's going to get paid. You think he's ready?
Yeah, I think he's ready. I think Tua's ready. I love Tua. Without the hip injury, the Cincinnati Bengals would have taken Tua. You know what I'm saying? That's the only difference was the injury. And even with the injury, he's still the 5th pick overall to a team that needed a quarterback tremendously. That's a great match. I think he's going to be a really good pro. You know, he's going to get some bumps and bruises with the Dolphins, but I think he's ready, and I think he's going to start to bring them back.
Mr. Tua, the things you hear about him, pocket presence, and I think the only thing I remember them saying is that, you know, making sure that he slides, he avoids the hits a little bit more intelligently than maybe he did in college, or maybe he didn't have that fear, so you know he was willing to go.
Well, I don't think he really had a problem with sliding. I've seen the guy slide, and I've seen him take not bad hits because of his speed and his body positioning. But when he hurt his hip, he got pulled down in the pocket. He was escaping the pocket, running toward the sideline. The guy grabbed him, pulled him down from behind, kind of like they got Bo. So, you know, at this point, yes, it's important. You have to slide because you have a body part that you need to protect. You know what I mean? But he didn't have a problem with his downfield running.
Okay. Well, I mean, everything they said about him in terms of, you know, the quickness of the reads, the accuracy, the touch, you know, so it looks as if Miami has something, and it's going to be a fun division to watch without Brady in it. So
it's going to be a great division. See, I don't want to get too far off of what we're doing, but that's going to be the AFC East is going to be real interesting. The Jets are going to win a couple games. The Bills could win the division. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of stuff going on in that division.
Next up, DeAndre Swift, running back out of Georgia. Kind of on the smaller side, 5'8", but 212. Went to the Lions, round 2, pick number 3, ran a 4.48 with a 35-inch vertical. You like the smaller running backs like that?
I like running backs that produce. I don't care how big they are. Okay? Remember, I'm a Giants fan. I had Brandon Jacobs, the tiptoe bandit.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care how big you are. If you can handle the load, you handle the load. If you're 2 down back and you move the chains, so be it. You know, if you're a 3rd down back and you're a huge threat out of the backfield and you can produce, I'm with it. I don't care. But DeAndre Swift went in the 2nd round. Now, here's the deal. I'm not mad at this one, even though I had him as a first round talent, but then I don't own an NFL team. So I don't know the needs as well as they do, their needs and their wants, but he was still the number 1 running back selected, right?
Yeah.
I believe he was. I don't think there was another running back taken before him.
No, not even my man from Penn State.
Okay, so I'm not mad at him at all.
Hey, look, you're right.
Well, wait, no, there was one. The guy from LSU, Hilaire.
Oh, you mean in terms of the picks?
In terms of where they actually got picked, yeah,
Okay.
not in, yeah. Hilaire's not even in that list, is he?
No.
See, Hilaire didn't have a top 20 combine score, but he was the first running back taken.
I'm looking here. It looks as if there was a few taken. He was third. You had Swift, Jonathan Taylor, and then Hilaire.
Taylor, right? Okay.
Yes. Okay. Can't forget that guy.
Okay, so Swift was the first running back off the board.
Off the board.
There you go. Okay, well, I'm good with that. Even if it went to the second round, that's fine. Teams never want to take a running back in the first round.
If they could avoid it, yeah, I know.
They could avoid it. And as long as people kept picking O tackles and linebackers and DBs and receivers, everybody was sitting back waiting like, okay, he's still there. You know what I mean? Boom.
Okay. Boom, as he says. Moving on. C.D. Lamb out of Oklahoma, 6'2", 198. Went to the Dallas Cowboys. Your division, round 1, pick 17. Ran that 4.5. Ben, 11 bench presses. That's it.
How many?
11.
Oh, that's okay, man. He's a skinny old wide receiver. Nobody cares. Believe me, nobody cares how many bench presses wide receivers put up. That nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. All right. So what do you got on CD? Anything?
They're looking at those 20-yard shuttles and those high jumps and broad jumps. That's what they're looking at. But yeah. So again, I thought that Jerry Jeudy was a notch above CD Lamb, and it turns out where they got selected bore itself out. They were back-to-back picks, if I'm not mistaken. So okay, so. Again, those are the top two guys as far as I was concerned. If you're going to take a receiver in the first round, one of those two has to be selected. And then you knew Ruggs was going to come in at least third just because of the speed factor.
Yeah, I see CeeDee Lamb as the first wide receiver off. Then I see Jerry Jeudy. Then I see Henry Ruggs.
Right.
So
they all landed at in other words, as we're doing this, their combine grade bore itself out. And
for the level of correlation there, that's what we're finding out. For the
most part, that's what we're seeing. There's only a couple of anomalies.
I think, and part of it is that, like you said, you don't think about linemen relative to being the top picks. But it's been that way now for a few years, man. You know, you're an edge rusher, you're a top offensive lineman. You're getting picked before some of these superstar wide receivers and running backs and stuff.
Yeah. It's a passing league. So the name of the game is get to the quarterback and protect the quarterback. You know what I mean? So O tackles and edge rushers are always going to go high. And if you look at the salary structure, they're right up there. You know what I mean?
That money.
They didn't start picking guys that specifically played offensive guard probably till the third or fourth round. You know what I mean? If you came into the draft as an offensive guard, you're not going in the first round. You're just not. It's the nature of the game.
Nature of the game. All right. Next up, Jedrick Willis, Alabama tackle, 6'4", 312, went to the Cleveland Browns in round 1, pick number 10, ran a 5.05 40. Let me make sure I give him his just dues with a 34-inch vertical, which is pretty good for a guy that's 312
That's actually really good. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This guy is in the top 10 with his draft grade, with his combine grade. And he went super high. And that's again, these things bear themselves out. He's the number 10 pick overall in the first round, goes to the Cleveland Browns, a team that has established the run game. Nick Chubb had a really good season last year, and are looking to make it even stronger. I mean, you want to take pressure off of Baker Mayfield as much as you can until he gets himself together and stops just showing flashes and becomes a viable number one, QB1. But obviously this guy fit the mold for them, and they went right out and got him.
They sure did. They sure enough did, man. All right. So we'll talk again a little bit about the Browns and all the different teams as we continue to move on with that. Okay. I think I got this guy in here a couple times. All right. Next up, we have Isaiah Simmons, Clemson, 6'4", 238, linebacker. He's one of the first guys, if not the first, with the grade of 7. Went to the Cardinals. I got to keep my eye. I told you last year I got to keep my eye on these darn Cardinals in my division.
Right.
The Niners. Number 8.
That's right.
Dude ran a 4.39.
Let's say that again. 4.39. He's a linebacker. Okay,
a 6'4" linebacker.
That's wide receiver numbers.
That is true. He can cover pretty much any one of our wide receivers now.
which was exactly why I wanted the Giants to take him at number 4 overall. But I knew that they were going to have to go with – those were 2 positions of need. So they had to make a choice, and I guess they had to decide which one do we need more, and that's why they took Thomas. And, again, I like the pick of a good offensive lineman, especially an offensive tackle who can probably play left tackle. I'll take that. If that's the pick you want to make in the first round to help improve our team, I have no problem with that. But I hated missing out on this Simmons kid, man. This guy's good. This guy has played free safety and strong safety and linebacker and edge rusher during his college career at one point or another. And then they have the nerve and stays on the field and started wherever they put him, okay? And they have the nerve to list as a weakness, that he's not real good at any one thing. No kidding. He's so good at so many things that they had to use him and keep him on the field. That's the way I look at it. I think he's going to be a star.
All right. Well, let's not hope he gets too big in my division.
Yeah, since he plays for the
Cardinals. Take it easy, buddy.
Yeah.
Right here. All right. Speaking of getting excited, everybody got excited over Joe Burrow. LSU quarterback, 6'3", 221, 707, went to the Bengals, round 1, pick 1.
Yep.
What can you say that hasn't already been said about Joe Burrow?
Nothing. I mean, there's only 3 guys who had better grades at the combine than this guy. And this is in a time where a lot of quarterbacks who are projected to be the number 1 pick overall will not go to the combine. They won't throw and all that. They don't want to do anything because they know they're going to be the number 1 pick. But I believe he did participate. I know he had a pro day. So if there's only 3 guys that had higher grade than him and he goes first overall and he plays the most important position in the game, then guess what? It all worked out, and that makes me feel a lot better about these combine grades to see that most of these guys that had the high combine grades actually did go in the first round. They all fit a need for somebody, and that makes sense, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So for sure, first pick overall, he's the money man. He's going to be the savior in Cincinnati. They got their fingers crossed.
All righty. Derrick Brown. Now, we were talking about the other guys chasing you at 6'5". This is a D tackle, 6'5", went to the Panthers. Again, here's the Panthers building that defense. 5'1", 640, and 28 reps.
Wow. Yeah, this guy's going to be scary. Again, they got him listed as a D tackle. So he's a pocket pusher, run stopper. You know, teams are trying to get stronger up the middle on their D lines. You can't just depend on your monster edge rusher now all the time. You got to have somebody that can play the run, and you got to have somebody that can push the pocket. And this guy was too good to pass up. When he has a combine grade like that, he went to the combine, he showed off. Okay, he was a physical specimen. People could not believe what they saw, and he had to go high, and he did. You can't. So if you need somebody at that position, you can't turn down that kind of talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're building your defense, there you go. You know, it's the gift, another gift waiting for you. No doubt about it. Speaking of a gift, Jeff Okuda out of Ohio State, cornerback, 6'1", went to the Lions. There's the Lions again, ran that 4.48, for a 41-inch vertical. That pretty much means he's slamming on the basketball court if he wants to do that.
Now, another corner went. C.J. Henderson, I believe, was drafted. Wait, let me see. I think he was drafted ahead of him. I know definitely Okuda had the highest combine grade as far as defensive backs was concerned. C.J. Henderson went.
No, he was third. Okuda was third. So the only person ahead of him was Burrow and number one, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Right, that's what I'm saying. He had the highest grade at his position.
Yeah.
As well as the top 3 grade in the entire thing.
Yeah.
Okay. But okay. Yeah. CJ Henderson was the only defensive back that was anywhere near him. That was the point I was trying to make. This guy goes round 1, pick number 3 overall to Detroit Lions. I feel bad for him, but you know, they traded away Slay. They have a lot of issues on defense. So Detroit made up their mind. This is a talent at a position that you just can't turn away from. The Lions need a lot, okay? But not only did this guy have a top 3 grade at the combine, but he was projected a top 3 defensive back. That's a position of need for them, of great need for them. So again, I can't turn down this talent. I have to have this player. Come on over here.
Makes sense. That's he had the second highest draft grade combine grade, excuse me. Let's say that correctly. Only next to this gentleman here, Mr. Chase Young, DN, Ohio State, 6'5", 264. Man.
Everybody got a prospect grade. Not everybody had combine numbers.
Ah, that's what they did.
Used,
okay.
Right, but I think when they made that list, they used the combine numbers on top of general information that they had for each player to come up with a prospect number. So it's still pans out. The bottom line is the Washington team that needs to change their name needs talent. And this guy is without a doubt the most talented player in the draft. a physical specimen, good speed, good awareness, played on a great team, had really good numbers. I think he crushed Bosa's numbers as far as Ohio State is concerned. This guy had a monster year. So, Washington picked what, third in the draft? They had the second pick.
Second pick.
Right. So if you're not going to take Burrow, then you have to take Chase Young. He's the best player on the board, period. If the Bengals had taken Chase Young, which they could have done, that would have messed Washington up. They'd have been like, what do we do now? You can't take Burrow. Never mind. Anyway, I think everything turned out the way we kind of expected it to. Their prospect grades based on their combine numbers, as far as being the top 20 is concerned, kind of bore itself out in the fact that the majority of the guys all went in the first round. There might have been some questions at certain positions where exactly they landed. But other than that, I think everything worked out just fine. I think everybody got who they wanted. And if you had a team that had a pick in the first round and they didn't take one of these guys that we just mentioned, it's possible that your pick will be called a reach. And we'll have to wait and see what happens once the season starts and where those particular guys end up. That may be something we have to look at for a future show also.
All right. The reach group.
The reach group.
The reach group. See how that works out. Okay. That wraps up the top 20 here, and we're going to move on to the next phase after this. All right, so next up, Mr. Dickerson, we're going to just scroll through our Facebook page. There are a number of subjects that we talk about. And again, our hashtag is football is life. So here we have Mr. Leigh Steinberg talking about what the 2020 NFL season could look like in this pandemic. And as I went through this article, I remember last week when we talked about returning the economy to normal, I used the fact that one of the NBA owners talked about bringing people back, testing them, and maybe putting them in some level of isolation. Oh, by the way, on my Facebook page, I did post this. I did some research, and the people in the media are using the word isolation and quarantine interchangeably, but they actually mean different things.
Yes, I agree.
So I'll just mention it. Quarantine is for people who are not infected. They're the healthy people who are told to stay in, to quarantine themselves to avoid getting sick. Isolation is for those people who are already, infected. They're the ones you have to put in isolation. So people talk about quarantine and isolation, they just throw the words back and forth, but they do actually mean something very specific. And the one thing that I noticed here that happened in both cases is that both of these gentlemen, Mr. Leigh Steinberg, who is a writer, he said here that the players already live in quarantine type settings for the first, few weeks of camp. They could report to camp and be tested to see if they have or previously had the virus. If they're healthy, then they could have their temperatures checked daily, as well as the overall players and staff. Anyone who's tests positive becomes sick, it says here quarantine, but they could be isolated, which to me actually represents the model that I believe that should be used in corporate America, that we need to, and just set up programs to test the employees so we can get them back in and knowing who's sick and who's not sick. But in addition to that part of it, then you have the whole scenario where now are there going to be crowds? Crowd noise is, feeding off of the crowd and all of that. Can you imagine going in Seattle Stadium and the 12th man ain't there?
Be like, is everybody here? Hold up.
No,
Yeah.
you almost have it right. Is anybody here?
Here. Yeah, right, exactly. That's what it'll be. It'll be very strange, man. I swear, I hope it doesn't come to that. I really don't. I think the crowd is a really big part of the game itself and is a lot of the joy in watching the game, even if I'm watching the game at home, to feel the ups and downs while you watch the momentum swings on the field. The ups and downs of the crowd has a lot to do with it too, as far as enjoying the game for entertainment, so I hope it doesn't come to that. But by the same token, if that has to be done in order to get the games played, I don't think it's a big deal in baseball or basketball, to tell you the truth. But football, I don't know. That's going to be tough.
The virtual world, the Madden world, all of that stuff is programmed in. And I just wondered how much of that technology could be used to respond to plays, because it's built into the game.
Are you, are you talking about robot fans?
Well, no, I don't know if it'd be robot fans, but
fans.
Nowadays, and they talked about this in when Dr. Neil deGrasse did the visit to the new stadium for the Chargers. They talked about the use of chips and all of that stuff that they're putting in the helmets, and they're putting because they can measure all types of stuff now. And, if you can virtualize what's going on the field, you could then have your algorithms respond appropriately. So they could actually pump in appropriate crowd noise using the game concepts, the game technology. It's a thought. But,
it's a thought. Yeah.
You don't have much of that like in your flag leagues. We played football without a crowd. We didn't care about that.
I tell you what, though, I've played and coached in games where there weren't hardly any fans at all. In fact, I coached in a championship game where there were no fans at all, save 3 wives from players on our teams. That's it. 3 women. That was the entire crowd. And luckily they were cheering for us. It was a torrential downpour, and not a fan, not a relative, not even a player in the league on a team that didn't make it to the championship came to watch that game. It's a torrential downpour.
And?
Oh, we won, by the way, but that's beside the point. The thing is, I've played big games and regular games in front of basically nobody. And I've also coached in games where there were a lot of fans. I mean, we're talking about in a neighborhood at a playground, at a recreation center. And it was different. It was different. When I'm coaching, I try to tune out what's happening on the sideline, but you can feel the closeness of people around you that are just watching the game. It does raise the intensity.
Okay. I know one other game where you didn't have anyone at the game. That was the game where you got me to come play with you, because I was the only stupid one on the side.
Right. That was when we were that was the phone company league, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we went straight from work.
Right.
Fans, remember? We went straight from work on a weeknight.
On a weeknight.
It was just us. It was us and the other team.
Yeah, that was it. And you guys had, what, 7? You needed 8?
Yeah.
And I was the only group on the sideline.
You're looking around like, who, me?
Yeah, absolutely. They're talking about the loss of revenue that you would have from the fans not being there, and then also the possibility of having limited fans. And I wonder, when it comes to season ticket holders, if you only allowed season ticket holders in, about what percentage of that stadium would be filled up? I don't know that, but it's just something that I thought about. Because let's say if it was 50% of the stadium, then at least the season ticket holders could be there, be safely distanced, and you'd have some level of a crowd.
50%?
I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, that's worth looking up. I would venture to guess that it would be more than 50% of the stadium is bought up by season ticket holders. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know.
Well, I'll look that up.
If that's the case, you could distance some. The thing is, people are season ticket holders for a reason. Usually they have pretty good seats. At least a good percentage of them do. Those season tickets, all those good seats, they're all bought up. So they're going to want to sit where they sit. I don't know that they would be willing to sacrifice sitting in the nosebleed section. You know what I mean? Because they have distance. How are you going to determine who gets the premium seats?
According to this quick search that I have, 85% of ticket sales are season packages.
There you go. 85%.
85. That'd be a bit much.
Almost full already.
Yeah.
Yeah, that won't work.
That won't work too much. But the revenue that's missing from that is potentially made up because they're going to be able to expand their television rights and their television audience. And I believe that this could actually make the game more international than it already is. I mean, we know that they're not going to travel this year. All of their international games, London, Mexico, they're actually going to stay here and play them at the regular stadium games, at their home games, things of that nature. But we also know that there's an Association of American Football, International Association of American Football. So you have a lot of fans across the world who are playing American-style football. And for them to maybe get additional access through streaming and things of that nature could bring a whole nother level of revenue and advertising revenue and things of that nature, for those, for the NFL and for the associated teams. Jacksonville, their unofficial home field is in London, right?
Yeah, they've been going every year since it started over there. So,
yeah.
That's a trip I'm sure they won't mind missing. I think pretty much the players believe that once you've done it one time, you don't necessarily want to make that flight again. But this is going to give the television networks a chance to get a little bit more creative too. I mean, if it comes to that, if they're actually going to have regular season games and not have anybody in the stands, then I would think that they might be able to do some little tricks and tweaks to the television broadcasts to make them more interesting. But yeah, I was about to say watchership. Did I just make that up? But the number of people the number of people watching is going to skyrocket because all those 80,000 and 60,000 seat stadiums, those people are home watching the games. So viewership, that's the word I wanted.
I was going to help you, but I'm like, no, I like the way you screwed it up. So
watchership sounded better. You're just going to let me die with that one.
Just between you and I, because the viewing audience won't know this, but we're getting paid back for the laughs that we got before the game, before the show, rather.
Right.
So we're catching it.
Yeah, exactly.
Karma is a trip. So no, definitely. And although it's going to be strange, and I've already had one person come to our page say they think it'll be boring. I don't personally think it'll be boring. I think once they get into the game, it's like anything. Once you get hit that first time, you're focused on the game. A lot of guys say they don't even hear the crowd. you and I played in front of crowds, and once your head's in the game, the crowds are like, you don't really. Some guys will feed off of them after a big play, and they want to run and jump into the stand and all of that kind of stuff. I guess you can still run and jump into the stand.
Just won't be anybody to catch you. That's all. But hey, if you want to jump up there, that's cool. No, you know what's going to. This is what's going to happen. If there's no fans, the game won't be boring because the talent is still there. The game plans are still there. The need for players to produce is still there. What they get from the crowd as far as enthusiasm and excitement, they'll have to produce that themselves on their sidelines. You may have more players being more vocal on the sideline than you do now.
The sideline might even have to change because you're not going to. Well, one of the things that they keep mentioning is testing. So, again, as I said in the previous week, if you can get the test, then you know who is clear, who's clean, who's not infected. Those people can pal around all they want. They can jump on top of each other and roll around. Doesn't make any difference because nobody's infected. It's the reason we're quarantined is because you just don't know. You just don't know who's infected. So that's why you have to quarantine. But with the lack of that, of that ignorance, you now know. And so you can pal around with your friends. It's, you've been tested, you've been checked out before you came in. And for the most part, you should be close to 100% clean. So but the sideline might not be much different.
Who are these friends you're talking about? What friends? You mean your teammates?
Teammates. That's
okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's where all the excitement is going to have to come from. The sidelines are now going to become a lot more exciting. You're going to hear a lot more conversation. You're going to have guys that normally would just sit on the bench and talk to each other, now yelling stuff out onto the field. You know what I mean? That's where that's going to come from. I think
maybe they'll bring the practice squads in and let them sit up in the stands and cheer or something like that.
I doubt it. Pretty much what they're saying is essential personnel. So
yeah, but if everybody's tested, then you don't have to. You're not in an essential personnel situation. Well, first of all, that's probably already going to be gone by the wayside by that time. Once they start opening up, you only have essential personnel in a quarantine situation. But
but once they start opening up,
you can bring more people in if they've already been tested, and you just want to fill in the stadium a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm just speaking under the assumption that they decide that they're going to start playing games, but they're not going to have any fans.
Right.
In other words, things aren't completely opened up, but they want to get these games going. So
okay, you got a point there. So
essential personnel could include the practice squad, but you're not going to sit them up in the stands and have them give them pom-poms. They're going to be on the sideline going through the motions of being like a healthy scratch that day or whatever. They're going to have a headpiece on. They're going to be listening to plays. They're going to be making suggestions. They're going to be patting guys on the back, that kind of thing. Just like one of our flag games would be at the recreation center.
You still have a level of crowd excitement, at least from your peeps on the sideline. You know what I mean? That's pretty good.
It's just not deafening. The sound won't be deafening. That sound that we're used to hearing when we watch a game on TV or when we're sitting amongst thousands and thousands of people, that won't be there. But the intensity of the game, I think, will be just fine.
All right. So next up, Ben, we're going to talk about the new stadium for the Chargers and the Rams, I do believe. They're going to share the stadium, Sofi Stadium. And what we want to show is the screen on the inside of the stadium called the Oculus. Can you see that?
I can see that.
Is that not the craziest looking thing? I'm going to try to make it just a little bit bigger for the people.
First of all, it's massive. This puts the Jumbotron in Jerry World to shame. This is the next step up, man. This is tremendous.
This is a technological marvel, man, and to have that much screen going on.
Now,
I mean,
just to be clear, so just because I just became clear on this, and we want everybody else that's looking at this picture, right now, that's the Oculus itself inside of the stadium, just above the field. So if you notice, you can see the stands go up above that. When they're through, they're going to raise that thing up into the sky. And it's going to hang, I guess, from the retractable ceiling, because I'm sure they're going to have a retractable roof.
yeah, they gotta dome that in. That's gonna be too hot.
Right. So they're going to put a dome over it, and I'm sure it'll be retractable. And that's going to sit up high so that no matter where you are in the stadium, you'll be able to see the field clearly, no matter where you are, either by
crazy
screens or looking at the field itself. Of course, if you're on a field level seat or whatever, you're going to look at the field. But anybody from like the so-called mezzanine area on up to the nosebleed section will have a very clear look.
You know something? This, and I said this here, that it sparks the thought of, could football become a drive-in theater type event? I mean, you know, you a stadium where you could have people inside, and then you could have a protected area outside, like a drive-in, and expand the reach of that stadium, you know, with social distancing built because everybody's in their car, like I did a drive-in or something.
You actually could.
You actually could. It's amazing.
They could turn the parking lot. They could turn the parking lot into stadium seating, play the games, and yes, you could. It's just a shame because everybody doesn't have an Oculus.
Everybody will need to get one.
Yeah, but by the time everybody has one, then you won't need it for outside seating.
That could be fun, man. I mean,
well, you know, then you have parking lot issues, and where you going to put this area where they get to park at, because the people on the inside that paid hundreds of dollars, they want to park their car there, and da 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 da. The thing is, it's a marvel. I can't wait to watch a game where they actually show you how this thing works and what it looks like once it's up. That's going to be tremendous.
That's going to be amazing. All right. Next up, we lost a little bit of history, a little bit of football history this week, Benny. The only coach to ever coach an undefeated NFL team. And I always remind people that my stepdad still owes me $20 on the bet that we made about this team.
What was the bet?
I said they were going to go undefeated.
When?
When it happened.
Week 12?
Huh?
When? Week 12?
That week, that season, Lawrence and I bet, and he has never paid me my money.
Did you make the bet at the beginning of the season?
I don't remember. That was 100 years ago.
Well, come on, man. What kind of bet is that? You just randomly, hey, guess what? I bet you the Dolphins go undefeated this year.
It had to be some point during the season, but
okay.
Let's not take away from the fact that we lost Don Shula.
No, let's not take away from the point that he still owes you money.
No. Hey, Lawrence, where my money?
Come on, Lawrence. What's up?
But yeah, you know, it was amazing to watch those guys. The whole running game that they had with Mercury Morris, they had the crazy power run game and the crazy speed outside run game. They had top-notch receivers and the no-name defense.
Yes. I remember the no-name defense.
The no-name defense. I mean, it was an amazing team, and they talked about how I guess they had a loss the season before, and they were just focused. They were super focused during that 72 season, man. And 90 years old, they say he passed peacefully in his sleep. you know. So I just wanted to do a quick shout out. Any last words on that?
Yeah, Don Shula, no doubt, a great NFL coach, arguably the greatest NFL coach. There's been a lot of Mount Rushmore talk when people are talking about sports, a lot of GOAT talk and all that stuff. Don Shula's got to be up there somewhere as far as NFL coaches are concerned, and football coaches, any way you want to look at it, really. That great season, they had a lot of talent. They were a really well put together team, and they had some luck too. If I'm not mistaken, their starting quarterback went down in that season, and the backup
Right.
going.
Right.
They had a running back got by committee before running back by committee was real popular like it is now. Okay, they had a bruising power back. They had a multi-talented back, and then they had another multi-talented back who was even more of a threat when catching the ball, with Mercury Morris, Jim Kick, and Larry Zonka. And that's before committees were even really talked about. So, and then of course, wasn't that guy Paul Warfield on that team?
Oh man.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, definitely. It's been fun, and it's crazy. Shula stayed relevant forever because every year the Dolphins got together, the ones that are still left, and they had a party and they drank champagne every time a team that was undefeated finally lost. And the one year that the Patriots were on their way, remember that? They were sweating that one out, man. They were sweating that one out.
And this team that barely made it, if I remember correctly.
Thank goodness for the New York Football Giants. They come along and ruin the party. 18-1, baby. That's right, 18-1. So, yeah, but the crazy thing was they still had their celebration. Shula was there. They drank the champagne and they toasted. The year the 85 Bears. And icing on the cake on that one was when the Bears were undefeated, when they finally lost and they had their party, they lost to the current, at that time, Miami Dolphins, which put salt in the wound. They had a big party on that one. They had a big party on that one. Their boys came through. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Shout out to Don Shula, man. Great coach. Super Bowls with the Baltimore Colts, the old Baltimore Colts, and the Miami Dolphins.
Right. Johnny Unitas.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Unitas, man. And some of the names that came out of that 72 roster, you know, you mentioned Earl Morris, you mentioned Earl Morrow, Bob Greasy, Larry Zonka, Jim Kick. We didn't talk about Howard Twilley, in addition to Paul Warfield and Marlon Briscoe. A couple good names.
Marlon Briscoe.
Yeah.
Marlon Briscoe played quarterback, one of the first black quarterbacks. Played quarterback for the Denver Broncos. People forget about that back in the AFL days.
Wow. Marv Fleming and Jim Mandich at tight end. You have your Bob Kuchenberg as your lineman, and among a number of other great linemen like Larry Little. Defensively, Manny Fernandez. I know you like that one. So you had a number of those guys. Nick Bonacani came out of that group. Larry Bell came out of that group. Man, just an awesome. And we even have to remember Garo Upremium, who had one of the great screw-up plays of all time.
Oh, Garo.
But he was there. He was a part of that list. So, you know, awesome. Rest in peace. Condolences to his family, and you know, rest in peace. So one of the other things that we wanted to talk about was the success of LSU, and we shared on our page something that I found, which I thought was, amazing, but LSU actually, their entire offense is now on an NFL roster. And that in itself is amazing. But you know how people talk about some football teams in the NFL are so bad that a college team could beat them.
Yeah,
You've heard that before.
Yeah, I've heard it before.
Yeah. I think that some of that came up with LSU when they were playing so well. But we didn't, we don't normally think that because we just know that there's body type differences and stuff. But that's a pretty decent situation to know that your whole offense, everybody, is in the NFL, man.
That's every draft eligible player.
Okay.
Probably one of the starting wide receivers for LSU will probably be the number one receiver coming out next year, Jamar Chase.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he was a starter. He started up opposite of Justin Jefferson.
Okay.
He didn't come out. So yeah, it's when you look at LSU, Alabama, I'll squeeze Ohio State in there. These are true powerhouses, and they're not like 1 year wonders. Like they're going. Alabama's been good since Saban got there. I mean, they were good before that, but they had their ups and downs. They've been consistently, I don't want to say good, they've been consistently great since Saban came back down there from out of the NFL to coach. LSU has been good for a long time, but they are now great. And you have to look at the conference too. The Southeast Conference is the powerhouse conference in the country. It's the most respected conference. It's the conference that pulls down the most 4 and 5 star athletes out of high school, especially in the game of football. So they are the power conference next to, I don't know, the ACC and the Big Ten. So it makes sense.
Anybody bad enough that LSU could have gave them a little bit of run at very least last year in the NFL?
I hate to. Hey, look, I've heard people say they think LSU could have beat Miami last year, and I've heard people say that Miami would have mopped the floor with them. So it depends on how you look at it. On the surface, you would say LSU, that's a powerhouse, and Miami stunk. So, yeah, they can beat them. I don't know.
Because then they turn around and beat the Patriots, right?
Right. Right. So what do you say about that? Yeah?
You know it.
Exactly.
All right. We didn't really believe that, but it was nice, again, that all of those guys got it. So many of their offense got a chance to make that leap to the NFL. All right. So last for the show today, Ben, we're going to look at some NFL Super Bowl odds that have come out for our different teams. So let's cue this up here and take a quick look.
A lot of people look forward to this, man. Super Bowl odds. People will go to Vegas and lay their money down before the season even starts.
Now, I'm assuming here that we're going in terms of the odds, but I'm not quite sure how Baltimore comes in at 2 with a 13-2 odds as opposed to San Fran with a 7-1. But obviously, Kansas City looks to be the favorite at 4-1 odds.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This we'll have to talk to our gambling advisors to explain that to us. But evidently, 13-2 is a little tougher than 7-1. We'll put it that way. Or a lot of, or actually closer than 7-1 odds. 13-2 odds is, I think I'm saying that right. But anyway.
Yeah, when you look at this, Kansas City, Baltimore, that sounds, sounds about right. San Fran is still up there. The Saints at 11-1 odds. Dallas and Tampa Bay. Look where Tampa Bay is. Right up there with Dallas at 12-1 odds now, thanks to the new addition quarterback of Mr. Tom Brady there just changed everything.
Yeah, but for all the noise that people are making about Tampa Bay and Tom Brady, you see Dak Prescott above them. So what do you think about that?
Well, they got that new wide receiver. They had a nice draft. And that might be one of the reasons, although, I mean, let's face it, that Tampa Bay receiving core is loaded.
That's true. And I'm sure a lot of people are banking on the fact that Tom Brady still got plenty left, and he's going to have a receiving core that's far better than anyone he's had in quite a while. And he's still been successful. So, yeah, I can understand why Tampa Bay is where they are. I'm just saying, for as much talk as there is about Tampa Bay, there doesn't seem to be that much talk about Dallas, yet Dallas is sitting right there 12-1 right with them.
I would probably hazard a guess that it might be because the defense is probably not considered as good as Dallas's defense. So if there was anything tipping the scales in Dallas's favor, I would think it was the defense. But they're both at exactly the same odds, 12-1. So not really a difference. They're just, that's like when we're looking at some of our differentials and, you got the same numbers. Sometimes 13 and 14 are the same, they have the same differential, and one's just maybe, alphabetically different. But they're right there, 12-1 odds. Seattle's coming in with the Eagles at 17-1. So that was an interesting game last year when Seattle came into Philadelphia and was able to win that game. Green Bay is probably about where Green Bay should be at 18-1. A playoff team, a team that went to the NFC Championship. So we'll have to see.
Didn't have a great draft, supposedly.
Right. Good point.
Now, we're down to Green Bay, so let's go back up to the top for a second. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's like the top 10 we just went over, right? Or at least the top 9. Did you notice?
Approximately.
Did you notice the top 2 are AFC teams, and everybody else, all the way down to Green Bay at number 9 or 10, is an NFC team?
Was it last year that we thought the NFC was stronger, or the year before that? I know when we were looking at net points, I believe that
point-wise, I forget exactly what we said. I think I was pretty much under the assumption that the NFC was stronger overall, that a playoff run through the NFC would be tougher.
When I look at the differentials coming off of last year in the AFC, your positive differentials, Ravens, Patriots, Chiefs, Titans, and Bills. Everybody else was in the negative. So you had 5 in the positive, but your positive numbers were pretty high because the Ravens were plus 249, the Patriots were plus 195. You go to the NFC, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 deep on the positive side.
Right.
But the numbers weren't quite as impressive. San Fran was right up there it is number 1 at plus 169. They were higher, but then they fell off in the second half of the season, as I remember. So that might be why we had that concept or that idea.
Yeah, I believe that is exactly why we had that idea, or a big part of it, that the run through the NFC would be a tougher playoff run overall than the run through the AFC. In the AFC, you knew you had to beat a Houston or Tennessee, as opposed to in the NFC, you knew you had to beat a Seattle or New Orleans. You see?
Yeah.
There's a difference there. So yeah, I would agree with that. And it kind of looks like they're expecting it to be that way again.
But now once you get to New England, You got two 20-1 odds in the AFC at New England and Buffalo. Then you've got Pittsburgh and Indianapolis along with the Rams with 25-1 odds. And then finishing out, that is the Chargers.
That's actually the Chargers. Yeah.
25-1.
I
The
find
Chargers
that surprising.
with a better ratio than the Rams. Man, that's craziness. And Minnesota at 28-1 down there with the Rams. So you got the Rams and Minnesota at 28-1, rounding out the first half of the top 16 in terms of Super Bowl odds there. Crazy. And the Minnesota had a pretty decent draft, from what I understand. But they let Diggs go.
Yeah, they did, but they made up for it. They brought in some more receivers, and they still have Thielen, and they still have they still have Thielen. This is the area, the bottom 16, the bottom of the top 16, where just about anything goes. The only surprise I see in that bunch is probably the Colts and the Chargers. I'm a little surprised to see them that high, actually, to tell you the truth. But I'm considering that Vegas is taking into effect the free agent moves and the draft and everything that's taken place up to this point. And they believe that those teams will be up there. I'm not surprised to see Pittsburgh, and I'm not surprised to see Buffalo. I think those teams are contending teams. Let's face it, the Tennessee and Houston are over on the other side there in the lower 16 or the lower half of the league, and they both were playoff contenders. Well, they weren't contenders. They were playoff teams last year.
Yeah. Especially Tennessee went in there and beat the Patriots. So,
right.
And now Chicago and Cleveland. Chicago with Nick Foles coming in. And Trubisky, is he still there? Did they let him go?
They didn't. What they did was they're not going to exercise his 5th-year option. So they're going to allow him to stay on the team and play out that last year.
Okay.
And he's basically on a prove-it deal now.
Okay.
They're bringing in competition. Supposedly, it's supposed to be a true competition between him and Foles to see who's going to be the starter. And I think they don't want to give up on Trubisky, but this is the final straw. This is like, dude, you either win this job or you're going to be gone. We're not going to give you a new contract, and we're not going to give you an extension. You have to earn it.
Right.
So you hold off Foles and produce like a starting quarterback on a good team should, then he'll be okay. And if he can't, then he'll be looking for a new team.
They're 40-1 odds along with the Cleveland Browns, who had a pretty decent draft, and they've got some new leadership now, so it'll be interesting. Denver is the only 50-1 odds team. Then you got 1, 2, 3, 4 60-1s. You got the Texans, the Falcons, your Giants, and the Cardinals. But for the Cardinals, I guess, that not being last, 32 or, close to that is a move up for them. I'm expecting something out of the Cardinals a little bit.
I believe that's a big move up, and I'm sorry that I didn't suggest to you when we were talking about this part of the show that we didn't go back and look at what these Super Bowl odds were before last season began, because I would venture to guess that Denver and Arizona were down there at the bottom, right where Washington and Cincinnati are.
Yeah.
So the fact that their odds got better tells you that, we believe that they're better. Same thing with the Giants. That's just them showing that, yeah, these guys have improved. If you're at the bottom of this list, if you're 200-1 to make the Super Bowl, okay, that's more than an earth-shattering miracle. Okay, I know somebody when did the Cowboys, when was their last Super Bowl? Do you remember? Because I remember, I know somebody who was a Dallas Cowboys fan that went to Vegas for vacation and laid down a couple $100 on Dallas to win the Super Bowl. And they were somewhere in that 12-1, 17-1 range, and they won. And he got paid.
Got paid big time, eh?
Paid.
All
But
right.
that's not
Yeah, because I guess what? If Cincinnati, what's that? You put down $1, you win 200. Is that how that works?
That's basically it. That's crazy odds. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Just throw $50 down. What's that?
Yeah, 50 times 200. What? Throw another 0 on there and a 10. So you'd have like $10,000 or something like that.
People will do it. People will do it.
Hey, look, I mean, if you could just bet $1, you might as well just bet $1 on the bottom half and see, you might get something out of that.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a minimum bet on something like these, but I would put $50 down. I would put $100 down
on who?
Guess what? I bet you there's a ton of people in Tampa Bay right now taking them 12-1 odds. A bunch.
Now, that might be true.
There's still people in New England that'll put money down on that 20-1 to win big money because they don't think they're dead yet.
Let me tell you something. As much as they talked about the Patriots and what they didn't have last year, the Patriots were plus 195 in differential last year. So,
right.
That's what Tom Brady brings along. Now, again, he had a number one defense. In terms of defense, they were pretty much it. Let's see here. In their they only gave up 225 points for the year. That was lowest in the league, and that's what I generally go by. So he had the top defense. That's what he's going to have to deal with. Actually having to win games now sometimes instead of depending on the defense. But that's not bad. What do you think about your New York Giants at 60-1?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to put money down. I'm not going to do that, okay? But I believe that they will be much improved this year. In fact, I was on Facebook talking to a friend that's also a Giants fan, and this is a female friend, an ex-coworker, and she loves the Giants. I think her big brother was a Giants fan or something and just kind of brought her up that way. And she was like, man, I hope we win some games. I just want to win some games. I just want to be, show improvement. And I said to her, we're going to sweep Washington and we're going to split with the Eagles.
Okay. Going to sweep Washington and split with the Eagles.
Now, we might take an L when we play Dallas twice. I don't know. Dallas is much improved. I know people don't want to hear it.
But they got receivers now.
If you're an Eagles fan, you don't want to hear it. You're still going, oh, they're not that good. Dallas going to be good.
Yeah.
I'll try to be realistic. But if I can split with Philadelphia and I can sweep Washington, who a lot of people are saying it could be coming up a little bit, I'll be happy.
You can't even hurt Dak and feel comfortable nowadays because they got the red rifle.
Now they got Dalton. Exactly. That's that's a nice little insurance policy.
That's not a bad insurance policy at all, man. I mean, that's almost Nick Foles-esque.
Yeah, pretty much. It's going to be interesting to see how this team works under McCarthy. Yeah. I've seen him do things with Aaron Rodgers, and I've seen him do things, up there in Green Bay. I'm not going to say he's a great coach, but he comes from a nice tree, and he's a proven winner, and he's got Super Bowl rings. So, Dallas is going to be tough, man. They're going to be tough.
Got your hands full. We all do going into next year. So many different things going on. And then just even in terms of maybe team personalities and how, if they were in an empty stadium, for example, and I don't know if these odds take any of that into account, but I'm sure there might be some personalities which do better in an empty stadium or do worse in an empty stadium. You won't find that out until, they start playing.
Yeah, I really don't know if this stadium thing and having people in the stands is going to make a difference or not. I really don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I don't think it'll take long for the guys to get used to it. Look at some of the intensity that comes in these scrimmages that they have now.
Yeah.
Where one team invites another team to their facility to work out with them all week long. You got guys out there fighting and swinging on each other and all kinds of stuff going on. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. We're going to, as fans watching it on television, it's probably going to bother us more at first than it does them.
Yeah, you might be right about that, because we're used to hearing the roar of the crowd and picking up on all of those signals. And
players are locked in. They're locked into what they're doing.
It won't make me any difference. Football, I love it. I can sit there and watch the replays and all of that stuff and hear nothing, and
I'm with you.
It's fine, but for the average fan, you probably it's going to be weird. It's going to be a little strange.
Yeah.
All right, that pretty much wraps up what we were going to talk about. We went through top 20 combine. We went through the what the NFL is going to look like post COVID-19. We looked at SoFi Stadium and the Oculus. Rest in peace. We talked about Don Shula, LSU versus the pros, and wrapped this up with Super Bowl odds. That's pretty productive, Mr. Dickerson. I thought we did a little something there.
Yeah, I would agree.
Any last words?
Last words would be go Noles.
All right.